Okay, ready? Bismillahirrahmanirrahim, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Whether we show thee within thy lifetime part of what we promised them, or take to us thy soul before it is accomplished. Thy duty is to make the message reach them. It is our part to call them to account. See they not that we gradually reduce the land from us, or from its outlying borders, where Allah commands, there is none to put back his command, and he is swift in calling to account. Those before them did also devise plots, but in all things Allah is the devising altogether. He knoweth the doings of every soul, and soon will the unbelievers know who gets home in the end. I'd like to go over this just a little bit. Of course, this is Allah speaking or sending a message to Jibril, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Whether we shall show you within your lifetime all the stuff we've been pointing out, or take your soul before it's all accomplished. Now, evidently, when this is revealed, the Islam is well underway. You know, it's well underway.
Can you give the surah and ayah?
This is Surah 13, ayat 40, 41, and 42. We use this all the time. It just don't sound like it. We use it in when it talks about reducing the land from its outside and outlying borders and all that. Those are the reasons that we started with it. See not that we gradually reduce the land from its outlying borders, where Allah commands there is none to put back his command, and Allah is swift in calling to account. That talks about the process of eventual decline of Western power. Since the subject came up, we'll look at the last few weeks. Yesterday or day before, China and Russia got together. Okay, and they talked about certain specific things. They talked about, now here's Sam. Sam done jumped on everybody. He didn't jump on Venezuela, he didn't jump on Iran, and he didn't jump on, technically he didn't jump on everybody. Nobody's happy with him, including the Europeans. When he was over there, Marcon, whatever his name was, he was trying to be diplomatic, but he wasn't happy with Don. And the people in Europe, when Don was over there last week, they wasn't happy with it. They didn't have the big baby, but they had another one. I don't know whether he was in a stroller or whatever. But people are not happy with it. But more important than that, the subject that Russia and China talked about, and these are big boys, is economic sanctions and oppression, and the US dollar being used as an agent of oppression. Their discussion, we have to replace the dollar. The people in America don't know what that means. If the dollar is replaced as the global standard, this is a collapse. One thing is a tragedy. Look when the British pound was British pound used to be the international currency way back 100 years ago during the Great British Empire. The Greenwich timeline go right through London, whatever, because that's where it was all coming through at that time. London was the center of the world. So if you take Iran having those same type of meetings, and the whole idea is the U.S. is using this currency to bully and push everybody. It's got sanctions on Russia. Now it's the mess with China. Well, if you have the biggest, second biggest military power with atomic bombs and everything on one end, that's Russia. And the biggest land mass, I don't know, it's 8 times on, whatever it is, it's big, 600, it's twice as big as anybody else. And then you have the most populous country in the world, China. And they keep talking about China as number 2. But China is a monster. It's got the Belt and Road Initiative. It's got the Caribbean Initiative. I've been watching China all the time. They used exactly what was used on them, except in economy. Encirclement and suppression. On the U.S., I've been watching the Caribbean Initiative. They getting hold of South America. South Africa, most of the dolls that I bought Sakina was made, they was African-looking dolls, they was made in China 20 years ago. It was made in China 20. All the boxes in South Africa got Chinese writing on them. All the people that buy, where everything is made in China.
Yeah, when I went to Umrah, all the Islamic stuff was made in China.
Made in China. Okay. I don't want to divert from this lecture, but if you can get hold to, what was that, that article 2001, to everything, not everything people should know about Jihad, but it's the article talking about things that should be done during this period of time, whatever it was. But it was an article that we wrote relating to that period. We talked about Pax Romania, Pax Britannica, and you know, the Roman peace, the Roman, I got it on the tip of my tongue. But anyway, things you should know about something. But all those things, we've talked about the history of the United States. We've talked about the historical pattern. All the things that we told people about is sitting right in front of us now. But now, we're not going to go over all of that all the time. We can go over it because it's up to date. But we're going over it, it's like when Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. He had it retyped, the same words, but in the attitude that he had at that time. Because he was thinking, if I wrote Think and Grow Rich with the attitude that I had, that evolutionary attitude, that's going to come out to the people. So he had the same words retyped, Think and Grow Rich, which is technically a good book, 1937. And everybody read it too. Mahatma Gandhi studied it. The Muslims, that's part of Jamaat Islami, that was one of the most popular books in the world. Because out of the 12 things that it takes to become successful, the 12th thing is getting money. He actually talked about the other moral and ethical and spiritual things before that. But anyway, let me go on back and get, whether we shall show thee within thy lifetime part of what we have promised them, or take to us thy soul before it is accomplished. Thy duty is to make the message reach them. It is our part to call them to account. The word here is al-hasib. Al-hasib is the accountant, to count. Hasaba, to count. To take account. As we was talking before, the information that we have acquired, it was two things we was talking about downstairs yesterday. We was talking about Martin Luther King and Malcolm X, and that they were traveling kind of in reverse, light reverse on where they started off from. Malcolm X started off as a 100% black militant. And at the last part of his life, he's talking more about humanity and systems. And when he went to Egypt, and the Muslim Brotherhood taught him about caliphate and all that, he said, what? This is all in Islam? Hey, man. And so you notice the black nationalists always play 1964. I am a black nationalist. Black nationalism is my way of life. Islam is my religion. You can keep your religion in the closet. They always play that.
Yeah.
But that's not the way he was at the end. Martin Luther King, on the other hand, started off as the #1 peacenik, but when you hear his last lectures, he don't sound like the same peacenik. In other words, they were incorporating so fast because of the pressure that they was under. The white man said, we'll kill him. We'll kill them both. Which they did. Because Malcolm had a meeting with King, and one thing he told King, he called him a glorious fool. It's to his face. Every time you say you're a glorious fool. The stuff he was talking.
Mm-hmm.
So Malcolm said one thing about it, me and you, we both dead men. And Malcolm told it. It was very nonchalant, casual. He said, one thing about me and you, we both dead. That's it for that. So, but now us, you got to remember, without nobody really knowing it, either outside of Oakland or inside of Oakland, what we was doing was fulfilling both of their policies. Malcolm talked about blacks controlling everything that come and go in their neighborhood, including crime and everything else. That's what we did. Martin Luther King in 1968, the same year we launched our project, he went to Chicago to launch an economic program. He had evolved to the point that he already knew we can't get no freedom with just walking in the street. We need economics. So he went to Chicago to kick off the economic program. He was killed. He didn't get it off the ground. Now in Oakland, we had it going on. That's exactly what we were doing. But I didn't go around telling everybody. In fact, I kept that to myself. Everybody saw what we were doing. Everybody getting money from my main office right there on East 14. We was managing, we was really, that was rolling. That was happening. Number one, it was because of a little bit of clarity, but number two, we had already studied, we had we had 3 good years to study the European under what we was doing, from 65 to 68. We had all that time, not close over the year before, but we was watching Homeboy. I don't know if y'all remember that picture that I showed you, the Black Panther outfit. It's not an outfit, but that's what Free Huey Newey. Well, in 1968, they killed W.L. Nolan. That was a friend of mine in the yard at Soledad. He was the one teaching George Jackson them how to fight and everything. See, W.L. Nolan came from a fighting family. His brother Cornell Nolan was a boxer, and W.L. could just fight good. He could fight good, and he was teaching them. There's books about it where the George Jackson said the manhood training that I got was from W.L. Nolan. They was all at Soledad, the Soledad brothers. Now, Fleet of Drumgo was another friend of mine. He was part of the Soledad brothers. So we were intimately woven into all the patterns. When they, in 1968, they put W.L. Nolan out on the yard, and they killed him. In fact, I mentioned that in 2001 at that program we had downtown at the press club. Mm-hmm. And you know what Askia Muhammad told me?